Yes, I am Lise Winnie, and I will be your host today. Lise Winnie, I'm the host of Millennials Anonymous podcast and also the founder of M.A.P.S Media. And I wanted to be able to have this conversation out loud and in the open about student loan debt from millennials by millennials because we started a lot of this. So when it comes to the student loan crisis, it started with a lot of us and this big push to get millennials to go to school. And so because millennials were the generation that this started under, now Gen Z has way more debt than we do, but it started under us. So I wanted to have this conversation out in the open because this has been brewing for a while. And I think that a lot of people have missed this ship and missed the context of what's actually going on. Millennials and student loans go back like babies and pacifiers. We are known as the student debt generation. We came to age during a national financial crisis off of a financial fantasy. With 48 million Americans impacted by student loans, it's a problem we need to address in this country. The cost of college is increasing, and so is the wealth gap. Student loans are bogging down and hindering growth, but have harmed communities of color the most. The new plan under Biden cancels $10,000 of student debt per borrower and up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients for individuals earning less than $125,000 per year, and for married couples and heads of households earning less than $250,000 per year. The plan has been met with mixed reviews, with some calling the plan too costly or even illegal. The student loan forgiveness debate is a years-old one. How do we move our nation forward, all while ensuring that our government and financial institutions can still thrive? It's a question we have not been able to answer. Let's look at where student loans actually come from. We have to go as far back as 1240 to Oxford University in England, where future Oxford University scholars deposited their valuable assets like metal cutlery and wooden chests to fund their education. In the US, right around the mid-1800s, Harvard University provided zero-interest loans. But in capitalism, money wants more money, and shortly afterwards, they required interest on loans.
The amount of the outstanding student loan debt has doubled in just the past 10 years.
We have passed countless acts to make education more appealing to its citizens. We have passed 75 different legal measures by Congress to try to make education more efficient. But we have failed to make education more affordable and efficient. Now we will discuss with our millennial panel about student loans. Some have student debt, some have paid it off, and some never went to college at all. I want to welcome Keenan Mims, CEO of Born to Win and host of Millennials versus the World, Dustin, aka D from M.A.P.S Media, and Ashley, the cannabis nurse, author and owner of Cannabis Nursing Solutions. We will also be talking with Jesse Hamilton McCoy, Esquire, clinical professor of law and supervising attorney for Duke Law Civil Justice Clinic later in the show. But now, let's start it off. Are we good or are we Gucci?
So, I'm not mad. So it depends on like the way you say this. Like I'm one of those ones like student loans wasn't like a life changer for me. Either way you want to flip it, you know what I'm saying? But I wasn't mad. I think it was cool. I think for this to be the package that you announced after all this time is a little like, what? But I mean, me personally, I'm not mad. You know what I'm saying? I'm okay with it.
Annoyed. Honestly, if I wasn't doing this with you, I wouldn't even really talk about it because it is annoying.
As the loan panelist that chose not to go to college, what do you think about this?
I definitely
What do you think about this?
happy about it. It's gonna make me pay more in taxes.
I think with taxes are going to go up anyway. There's one thing that you are going to be guaranteed to pay, and it's taxes. And I think a lot of people don't realize that we pay for lots of things. We didn't just end up here. So let's take a look at the history.
To figure out where you're going, you need to know where you came from. Let's look at some of the measures that we've actually already passed. In 1944, we passed the GI Bill, which is one of the most widely known education plans. After World War II, we provided veterans up to $500 per year to cover their education and a living allowance. In 1958, we passed the National Defense Act. We also passed the Basic Opportunity Grant. And then in 65, we passed the Higher Education Act. This law was signed by Lyndon B. Johnson, and it gave federal funds to state colleges and universities. It also provided low-interest loans and initiated the now defunct Federal Family Education Loan Program. And Sally Mae, I know that name gives some people nightmares and chills, but Ms. May was born the Student Loan Marketing Association. It was created in 1973. But it wasn't until about 1978 that the Middle Income Assistance Act that people really started to use Sally Mae. The Higher Education Act was amended in 1992, which led to the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, or FAFSA, and the Unsubsidized Stafford Loan Program. It wasn't until Bush in 2007 that we actually saw a push to lower the payments for students with the College Cost Reduction Access Act. This set a precedent, and it changed the game for millions with the creation of the Income-Based Repayment Plan, or IBR. He also passed the Public Service Forgiveness Program, which forgives public servants after a number of years in the field.
We have Mr. Jesse on the phone, so let me not say he's here because he's not here. He's actually we have him via audio. Can you give us a brief overview, a rundown of this plan?
The student loan forgiveness program that has just been proposed by Biden proposes for non-Pell Grant recipients who have their loans with the federal government a $10,000 forgiveness as long as they make less than $125,000 as an individual or less than $250,000 as a married couple. For people who received Pell Grants, Pell Grant recipients will have $20,000 forgiven with the same parameters, that they make less than $125,000 as an individual or less than $250,000 as a married couple.
It's for people. Everybody's gonna get this, but people with the Pell Grant is looking at like $20,000 in student loan forgiveness.
Private loan borrowers, that they aren't going to be impacted by this. This is only for people who have federal loans.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Okay. The other questions that come up, I know people, kind of anecdotally ask, why didn't they get more money? Like, why didn't Biden get more, or, what have you? The issue comes down to this, like, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, right? So, like, we've never had a president do anything about student loans, period. So, to me, I feel like $10,000 is more than anybody else gave. But from a Biden administration perspective, what they're saying is that they believe that this is going to completely absolve at least 1/3 of the federal loan recipients of any student loan debt, which means that they believe that there are a lot of people who have less than $10,000 worth of student loan debt.
Okay, got you. Makes total.
And I just haven't done the figures or done the numbers to check for public service. You will get your loans forgiven. That's a different program than what Biden has just proposed this week. So I don't know if people get confused about that, but there are some people, if you worked in certain industries for 10 years after your graduation and it's been catered more so to public service, then your loans are supposed to be forgiven as long as you were making the qualifying payments and weren't in a period of forbearance. And what I mean by that is not the COVID forbearance, because that counts towards your 10 years, but forbearance, like you just weren't making payments and kept pushing it off, then you haven't started making qualifying payments that would do anything for you. So, anyways, I hope this
always
helps you.
awesome. You explained that so beautifully. We do need to have a conversation, a real open heart conversation. Do you think this was vote baiting? Was this truly a win for millennials and student loans, or was this just vote baiting?
Joe Biden is trying to get some votes for 2024. I don't think it's really going to help people, truthfully. This thing going to have people pay more in taxes.
Yes, absolutely. Because who are the people who are dealing with this student loan debt? The issue is that we don't have enough information about money. So you give people $10,000 so they don't have as much debt. But I'm sure that they got credit card debt. And even if they, let's say, don't have to pay the $200, $300, $400 a month, what are they going to do with that $200, $300, $400 a month? They going to buy purses? They going to buy shoes? So you didn't fix anything. You've taken that money and you're displacing it again to somebody that's not within our community. It doesn't make sense because we're not teaching people how to use money properly.
Never looked at it that way, but okay.
The way you started, see, this is one of those things where where like you shouldn't tell nobody your move until you make it and slap people in the face. But like this is the thing that got most people to vote for you this time. You feel me? So this should have been like front runner, maybe, within the first whatever days we're doing this. So yes, he's vote grabbing. I don't think it will help that much. It's a whole other conversation. But I mean, he's doing what I feel like he's doing what he could do. A little bit ish. He has the power to do more. But I mean, y'all know we know how this setup is. You know what I mean? Like he played on our hearts about getting us here. This little bit is okay, but he's vote grabbing. You know what I'm saying? Like he's vote grabbing. It's okay. That's what all politicians do. You know what I mean? He should have did this vote grab 6 months ago. But I'm not gonna get into that. But
okay, I can see why you would say that. I can see that. Okay. Who's truly at fault for the student debt crisis? Over the last decade, the U.S. combined outstanding balance grew from $760 billion in 2010 to $1.7 trillion in 2021. Student loan debt grew faster than any other type of debt in the same time, including all credit cards and auto loans combined, with 11% of borrowers in default 90 days or less on payments, and this is before the pandemic in 2020. The cost of college is increasing. It increased at twice the rate of inflation and significantly faster than home and consumer prices in the last 35 to 40 years. Debt was given to pretty much anybody who applied. This made more complicated by the lack of financial literacy provided in giving 17 and 18-year-olds the power to think in the future and not just the now was a disaster. Not to mention, it's hard to predict your earnings 4 to 5 years ahead. Millennials, or student debt generation, came out of college around 2008 financial crisis, which we saw cuts to higher education funding, unemployment, rising college tuition, and slow wage growth. Millennials were told that you must go to college. It's our only way. So the average millennial took out $38,880 if you were white. If you were black, it was double. Only 32% of those who took out loans have entirely paid them off. One reason, negative amortization, which means your loan balance keeps growing and getting bigger even when you're consistently making payments. Besides the ridiculous interest rates on private and federal loans, the IBR Bush created, which was supposed to help people make loan payments more manageable, is actually making things worse. In the past, you paid a very small payment, but the interest kept growing, causing you to pay way more in the long run. With 1/3 of all borrowers using the income-based repayment, it seems endless. Erin Becker, a millennial borrower, spoke to CNBC, and she said, "When I was in high school, debt was never discussed. It was just like you go to college, that's what you did." She is not alone, with 52% of older millennials with student debt saying their loans weren't worth it.
Do you feel duped because they told millennials you have to get a degree just to work at McDonald's? Do you feel duped? Are college degrees really worth it? Are they needed?
So I kind of move in and out that kind of thinking. So part of it is I'm a nurse. So in order to do what I do, I have to have higher education, right? Like there's no other way to get into this field. But I do recognize that there are other opportunities one thing that came up for me when I was planning on going to school was like military, like that's a viable option. And then also a trade, which I also think is viable, but I feel like even with a trade, you should go to school for business at some point to best utilize that trade. Because even if you know how to do the physical labor, and it will bring you a okay income, I think it's best optimized if you can make it your own. So, I don't I think that education is almost required, honestly. I think that you could take breaks. I think that, the path or the choice or how you pursue that education can look different. But at the end of the day, somebody needs to teach you how to sustain yourself as a working adult.
Lied to, no. Misguided, yes. Because this is the way I feel. I feel like the generation before us didn't have access to the education we had access to. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like they pushed us towards it and they didn't know that they were putting us in it. So maybe like an indirect lie, but it was more so misguided. You feel me? Now, I think the bigger issue is like we didn't get enough game on what to go to school for. I think the thing about student loan debt that a lot of people don't like to acknowledge, if you went to school, had a hell of a time, socially, great experience, and you got a job in the field you wanted to be in, I don't think the student loan conversation is as scary. You know what I mean? Like, I think the issue is we weren't guided correctly on figuring out what you want to do in high school. The education is worth it if you know that's what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, and I think we fall victim of the cracks in between the generation who wanted freedom and the generation that was born completely free. You know how Generation Zers are. So like misguided, yes. Lied to, not really. But I think the biggest thing is we got set up with go to school, get a job, but like in what field? What's gonna, like, we didn't talk about how crazy the internet was gonna be now when we were in high school to know that like we need to think about technology. You know, technology sound good, but those type things is where I feel like we got misguided at. You feel me? So I think lied to, not so much, but misguided definitely. Because if I take it back, I wouldn't have went to college, or I wouldn't have went to college. I wouldn't have got my degree in math like I did.
All right, interesting perspectives. Now, for me, I believe that some of it is irresponsible borrowing. I think that there's a conversation that needs to be had that some of us did, because you do have the option to take out the maximum, and some people did. I am one of those people that for certain semesters I took out the maximum when I didn't need to necessarily do that, especially in the beginning, not realizing the impact or implication. So I think that there is some irresponsibility there that I think that certain people, we as borrowers do need to own up to. But if they are able to hold the financial institutions accountable, I think the educational institution should also be held accountable. When we look at like all of the loans and subprime mortgage loans, and you look at the housing crisis, it's very, very similar to the student loan debt crisis. Then I don't think we always view it that way. I think as an outsider, because honestly, in this conversation, you're almost like an outsider looking in. So you actually bring in the conversation of a lot of those folks that are looking at these educated people that should be, because that was the whole thing. Like, you go to college, you're gonna make all this money and yada yada yada, and you're gonna make $40,000-$50,000 more. And so you're on the outside looking in, saying like, hey, I'll bust my ass, I went and worked straight out of school, and now this is where we're at. Like,
truthfully, college, like you said, it's just depending on what you going to school for. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, he's never finished college. He's one of the richest person in the world. So college it's just depending on what you're trying to do with your life, truthfully. I don't know, they call it recessional, but a siege of recession. So why would you do something like this at this time?
Don't get me wrong. College has some perks. In general, you can expect to make more money, live longer, and have more job security. But if you are Black, that is not always the case. Minorities were taught that education would be the great equalizer. However, it has proven to be the opposite for a lot of people. Black women in particular have been impacted by high student debt. Black women are the most highly educated group, but hold the most student debt. On average, black people owe over 22% more than their white counterparts. This debt makes life much harder for black people, especially black women, when they get paid less and have less opportunities for upward mobility. The student loan debacle will exacerbate the wealth gap, which is currently at a 160-year high. There is a $220 billion wage gap between black and white Americans, and a $1.6 trillion revenue gap for black-owned businesses.
Well, really, from a racial perspective, like, we are the most privileged black and brown people that have access to the most stuff in hundreds of years. So why shouldn't I feel entitled to getting and reaping the rewards that our ancestors have worked hard for us to get access to? You see what I'm saying? Like, so yes, we are entitled. And the unfortunate thing is, and this is true in like when it comes to financial literacy and things like that, when you have to work for money, a lot of times you'll cherish the money, but when you pass down the money, a lot of times it gets lost because they didn't work for it. So, I feel like our generation has some glimpse of the world, the reality before technology, and, and watch the rise of it. Whereas our children were born with it and feel that entitlement even as young people. And so that, I feel like what's happening with them is an inflated entitlement where they literally do feel like they should just lay there and shit should just come to them. You see what I'm saying? So I do worry for our children in that regard. But at the end of the day, I feel unapologetic about how entitled I feel and how much access I have to things and the amount of information I can learn and how I can apply it. I feel like I deserve it.
So what are your thoughts about the student loan forgiveness and people who don't feel like they should pay their student loans? Do you feel like they are freeloading off of people like you who actually did sacrifice in order to make the payments and actually get it done?
People who are quote unquote freeloading, like, at the end of the day, they're gonna get theirs anyway. So it just is what it is. I felt proud when I did it. I've paid for my own schooling. So, at the end of the day, I did it because I knew what I was trying to do. It was intentional. I'm trying to pay off my debt and all those kind of things. And so that is not going to change for me. So I'm pretty much debt free. So I feel better about that than having Biden take away $10,000 or 20 or whatever it is.
Okay. And I when you look at this student loan forgiveness, and as a millennial, do you feel like we're entitled, that we believe that someone else should pay for us to get a free education? Because, that's a stigma that millennials have had since the beginning of time, that we are in fact entitled. And when you look at now, Gen Z actually has more loans than millennials did, and 1 in 4 of them want to be a social media influencer. Are we going down that pathway of an entitlement? Are we just entitled?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm gonna put it like that. I'm gonna go hard for my millennials. I'm gonna say this. Yo, we are the forgotten about generation. Straight up, to me, it's so much in between things that's happened. It's like that's the least we can get. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of us so when you look at this debt forgiveness thing, right? If you look at millennials, if you look at it grand scheme of things, all millennials, professionally, we're kind of killing the game, right? Entrepreneurship wise, there's some dope Generation Zers, some dope people, in front of us, but we're kind of killing the game business wise, right? I think what we start to feel away is when all these bills having these written incomes, because we were taught to go get the most money, but then, damn, you don't qualify for half the stuff that's being put out there. So you start to feel like, yo, where's my bread at though? You understand? Like if you doing really, just say you are a anomaly and you going over that 125, right? So I'm gonna get penalized for doing what I was taught to do. Yeah, you damn right. Yeah, pay. I do start to feel that entitlement when I'm like, I'm out here killing it and I'm getting penalized almost for killing it. So I should have scaled back a little bit. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I definitely understand that. And do you think this is the solution? Is this the appropriate solution? Did Biden and the administration make the right choice when they did this?
No. So by having something, yeah, but it simply is not going to be enough, because if you go past, let's just think about student loan debt past undergrad or like out of state tuition, like 10,000 is cool, but like you'll be better off just giving that to that person and letting them, some of them can invest that differently. Like I feel like, damn, if you got this amount of student loans, we give you this amount. And if you want to pay off your student loans, you can, or if you want to do something to put yourself in a better position, you can. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm so torn because it's like something had to happen. And you know, with all the bread we send into overseas, it's like, you knew it wasn't gonna be crazy. You know what I'm saying? So yes and no, if I can. Like,
okay,
a little bit, not really, sort of, kind of. Thank you, I think, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, because there's some people like, oh damn, that's all mine. You got people like me like that's half, and then you got people like me, oh, that's a penny in the ocean. So can't please them all. I think he could have went 20-40, you feel me? 20 on the front, Pell Grant give you 40 personally, but you know where all that money going.
True. And I guess we can end on this. What is your hope, especially as an educator, and when this has to deal with education? What is your hope for the future in a dream? Well, let's not even say your hope. In a dream world, should college be free, or should college be free, or universities?
So I'm gonna say yeah. Or there should be a good number that are, like, maybe if you want to mix it up and like, yeah, I think it should, because it's kind of like that doing business with only your friends and family. Like, excuse me, like, yeah, you can make bread, you can make money, you feel me? But like, are you really gonna come into an abundance, like trapping off your friends and family? So it's like with this student loan debt, like, yeah, you gonna gouge me and da, but like, I don't know if people know, there's a lot of millennials that plan on going to the grave with their student loan debt. That's like, oh, they're gonna have to come get me. So it's kind of like, how is that helping? You know what I mean? Like, so I do think essentially it should be, because then you will get people making the correct decisions based upon what they actually want to do. You know what I mean? Like, if I have this route and I can't do it, because it's almost like, I'm gonna put it in a different sense. Please forgive me. Try to follow me. I know it's gonna be crazy. Okay. So I'm gonna put it in a different sense. You know how like people are selling like courses and all that great stuff and all that glitz and glamour and all that, right? They prey on you not finishing it, right? They sell you a book saying like, 98% of people don't finish. So let's use that same thing in college. Like, the people that really want to get to the career that they want to get to are going to finish regardless. So making it free almost helps that person that wants to take a different route not waste their time. Because if I'm junior year and I done racked up $25,000 worth of debt and I got one more year to go, I'm going to probably do that one more year because I'm that close. But I know I want to do thing B, but I'm going to finish out because of that. If it's free, it's more so like, I appreciate this experience. I made some relationships, but let me go follow what I really want to do. And you're probably going to be more productive about that thing knowing you don't have the pressure of 70,000 on your back. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, did he make the right move a little bit? Like, he had to do something. Like, let's be clear. He had to do something or Rome was going to come burning down. Okay.
And if you were president, you would have just given more money sooner.
Man, cancel it all. You want to know what? You know what? Honestly, to me, I don't know if I could have canceled it all, but I would have made the system more. If you've, I probably would have canceled it all. I'm lying. I'm not gonna lie. I would lie because this is the thing. I'm not gonna talk about the president before him, but if I am on every stand saying this is what I want to do, and I'm president. And I say I'm gonna cancel all student loan debt. When 4 years from when I get in office, if y'all can't say nothing about me, y'all gonna say I did what I said I was gonna do. Even if the next person try to do whatever they do to take it off. You get what I'm saying? So like, what are you really losing?
You actually let people go for file for bankrupt on their student loan. So like, you still force people to pay for it, but if they can't, you can actually their credit and stuff, you mess up for years and stuff. So it's like they really wouldn't want to not pay for it. And then he could try lowest on college. Like community college should be free with like a social degree. And I think it's better to do that way because you actually could see if you like college, then being into a master or getting your bachelor's degree. If you like college, you can go on. But they should lower the rate. Like you shouldn't be paying 30, 40,000 just for 1 year. And I mean, they could drop it down for like getting a degree for like 15 some thousand for like a bachelor. I think that's more reasonable than somebody paying like 50,000.
So what's the solution? In short term, this will only help some students with the debt. It doesn't change future debt, and while we forgive the students now, we are charging Gen Z and Alpha more money to go to school. With this new plan, according to CNBC, that means borrowers with an income-based repayment plan who earn less than $31,000 annually or $15 an hour will have a monthly payment of $0, and their loan balances won't grow. The government is going to forgive up to $10,000 worth of student debt for people earning under $125,000 for individuals and $250,000 for couples, and up to $20,000 per borrower who receive Pell Grants. However, forgiving student loans is not impossible, even if the option comes in the form of bankruptcy. In the past, students had the opportunity to file bankruptcy if they could not pay their loans, which was made a lot difficult in the 1980s. And to be fair, Biden has passed quite a few things. The Bipartisan Safer Community Act, which is the most widespread gun safety since 1994, which includes millions of dollars for mental health, school safety, crisis intervention, and incentives for states to include juvenile records. He passed the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Lowering prescription drug costs, reducing the deficit, and investing into energy production while promoting clean energy, just to name a few. As we view how we feel about education in this country, millennials who are now parents, to the new generation that now carries more debt than we did, how do we make sure that the next generation is prepared for the future, as an education is still very much needed? The student loan process is a complex one, and we do need to think about how we view education in this country. And if we believe that only the rich should be able to afford and pay for higher education. How we feel about giving back to the community for the greater good, and what we want America to be in the future, will all determine where we go in this student loan debt crisis. The cost of college continues to rise, and without us and our voices, it will continue to inflate. We as millennials have to take a stand to make sure that the next generation can afford to be educated, thrive, build wealth, and be happy.
So tell people about your business and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so the launch date, I'm not ready to put out just yet, but it is coming out fall 2022. It's called Stigmatized. The book is the nurses / the hero's journey, which kind of goes through different types of stigmatized terms. One, I talk about money, but also being a nurse, being a Black woman, things of that nature, and cannabis as well. But my business is Cannabis Nursing Solutions. We provide education to healthcare providers about cannabis medicine, how to implement it into their practice, and then also how to help small businesses build brands. You know, everything you do before you hire the digital marketing person or whatever, everything that you need to have done on the front end, so that way you don't get screwed up with people that you're spending your money on. So you can reach me at www.cannabisnursingsolutions.com, and I'm on Instagram too. Follow me there. It's IG at Cannabis Nursing Solutions.
And Keenan.
My podcast is Millennials versus the World _podcast on IG. Millennials versus the World podcast on any audio. It's on YouTube and any audio platform. My media is born2win.media, the number 2, and my apparel is born2win_apparel, man. Thank you for having me on. That's where you can check in with me at.
The Matt Neal on IG and Twitter.
I want to thank Ashley, Dustin, Jesse, and Keenan for stopping through and giving honest feedback. We are on the precipice of change, for good and or for bad, but only we as the next leaders can address the dire need to fix the view, use, and pay for higher education. Schools have become so costly that we are running great future professionals away from experiencing an education or the opportunity to. This has been Are We Good?